She has been missing for 57 days, 84 years old. No shoes, no medication, no phone. Taken from her home in the middle of the night, in her pajamas, and the department assigned to find her just had one of its own officers arrested for kidnapping. Her name is Nancy Guthrie, mother of one of the most recognized faces on American television, and the investigation into her disappearance has become one of the most disturbing institutional failures in modern American law enforcement history. Not because of what the kidnapper did, because of what the people assigned to find her did and did not do. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you are going to understand that Nancy Guthrie may still be missing, not only because of who took her, but because of the people who were supposed to bring her home. People who corrupted the crime scene, people who pulled the cadaver dogs, people who sent evidence to a private lab in Florida instead of the FBI, people who spent more time at the gym than at the office, and people who were arrested for kidnapping while the investigation was still active. Before we examine every documented failure in this investigation, make sure you're subscribed and hit the notification bell, because this case is not over, and this channel covers every development as it happens. Nancy Guthrie was 84 years old when she disappeared. She had difficulty walking. She used a pacemaker. She required daily medication for a heart condition. She was described by authorities as a vulnerable adult. On January the 31st, 2026, Nancy left her own home and took an Uber to visit her daughter Annie Guthrie and Annie's husband Tommaso Cioni for dinner. She spent the evening with family, playing games. At approximately 9:45 in the evening, Cioni dropped her back at her own home in the Catalina foothills area north of Tucson, Arizona. That was the last time anyone in her family saw her. The next morning, Nancy did not show up for a virtual church service at a friend's house. Her family called. No answer. They went to the house. The back doors were propped open. Her keys were inside. Her phone was inside. Her wallet was inside. Her medication was inside. Nancy was not. Drops of blood were found on the front porch. DNA testing confirmed they were hers. Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos was called to the scene. He stood in front of cameras and told the nation that he believed Nancy Guthrie had been abducted, that the evidence at the scene indicated she did not leave voluntarily, that homicide investigators had been brought in, that this was a criminal investigation. And then the failures began. Not all at once, one by one, documented, confirmed, and in some cases, admitted. The first failure was the crime scene itself. Under established law enforcement guidelines, the authority to release a crime scene rests with the lead detective, not the agency's top administrator. A logbook recording all entries and exits at the perimeter is considered the baseline standard for preserving a legally defensible crime scene. Neither standard was met. Sheriff Nanos personally went on television and announced he had opened the crime scene. Dr. Richard Carmona watched that announcement. Dr. Carmona is not a random critic. He served as the 17th Surgeon General of the United States. He spent 34 years with the Pima County Sheriff's Department. He led its SWAT team. He knows exactly what a crime scene is supposed to look like. What he saw appalled him. He said publicly that Nanos made a fundamental error by personally announcing the reopening of the crime scene. He said that is not something a sheriff does. He said the lead detective is the person who makes that determination, not the top administrator appearing on television. He said the scene had been corrupted, and he said something that should terrify anyone following this case. Once it has been corrupted, that is the end of it. You cannot reconstitute a crime scene. Those were his exact words. The former United States Surgeon General and 34-year veteran of the Pima County Sheriff's Department said the crime scene in the most high-profile missing persons case in America has been irreparably damaged. But that was not the only thing that happened to the crime scene. during an active investigation in which an 84-year-old woman was missing and believed to have been kidnapped. A Domino's delivery driver walked across Nancy Guthrie's front lawn and up to her front door. Deputies on scene did not intervene. They watched a pizza delivery man walk across the crime scene. Dr. Carmona said directly, "If you are going to court and you are making a case, a defense attorney says that crime scene was corrupted. You had people delivering pizzas. How do we know this is real evidence?" He was right. Any evidence collected from that lawn, any footprint, any fiber, any trace material, is now legally challengeable because a pizza driver walked through it while deputies watched. The second failure was the evidence itself. After the crime scene was opened and contaminated, investigators collected physical evidence, DNA samples, forensic material. And then Sheriff Nanos made a decision that Dr. Carmona described as incomprehensible. Instead of sending the evidence to the FBI for analysis, Nanos sent it to a private laboratory in Florida. He cited cost savings. The problem with that explanation is that the FBI does not charge local agencies for forensic analysis. Federal forensic services are provided at no cost to local law enforcement. The taxpayers already fund it. Dr. Carmona said he did it because it was cheaper. But the FBI doesn't charge you. The tax dollars are already supporting that. This decision delayed the DNA analysis, which means the suspect who took Nancy Guthrie may have had weeks of additional freedom, while a sheriff sent evidence to a private Florida lab instead of the FBI because he thought it would save money, using a service that was already free. The third failure was the cadaver dogs. When an elderly woman with a pacemaker who requires daily medication disappears from her home and blood is found on the porch, investigators deploy cadaver dogs. Standard procedure. The Pima County Sheriff's Department borrowed cadaver dogs from a nearby Border Patrol office. They were used in the initial search. And then they were pulled. Retired NYPD Lieutenant Michael Gould has spent his career working in search and rescue. He is a founding member of the NYPD K-9 unit. He is one of the foremost experts in the country on cadaver dog deployment. He went on Fox News and said the decision to pull the cadaver dogs defies logic. He said cadaver dogs are the primary technology available to humans to detect the odor of missing people. He said they are considered in court a scientific instrument. He said pulling them means one of only two things. Either investigators believe Nancy is alive, or they have given up searching for her. When he was asked directly why the cadaver dogs were pulled, Sheriff Nanos did not give a clear answer. He said pulling them was necessary to avoid contaminating the criminal investigation. Dr. Carmona responded to that explanation directly. He said the crime scene had already been contaminated. What exactly was left to protect? The fourth failure was the sheriff himself. Sheriff Chris Nanos became the face of this investigation from day one. He stood in front of cameras. He gave interviews. He made announcements. He changed his story. He corrected himself. He changed his story again. Retired NYPD Lieutenant Gould said Nanos should have assigned a public information officer to handle press relations from the beginning. He said the sheriff's one-off interviews fueled conspiracy theories and created public confusion. He said it is almost like he is intentionally trying to cloud the issues because you never get a straight answer. He said Nanos has been ambiguous from day one. He said the community does not know if there is a serial killer running around. Then the New York Post published a report. Reporters tracked Nanos's movements between March 7th and March 11th. During a 7-hour shift, they observed him at his Tucson office exactly 2 times. During the same period, he made multiple trips to a gym in a convertible. While one of the most high-profile missing persons investigations in American history was going nowhere. The fifth failure was the vote of no confidence. This is the detail that most coverage has missed. Pima County deputies are the people who work under Nanos every day. They see him up close. They know what is happening inside the department. And they did something that is almost unprecedented in American law enforcement. They voted. The Pima County Deputies organization conducted a vote of no confidence in Sheriff Chris Nanos. Retired SWAT commander Lieutenant Bob Kreider said publicly that 98% of the department had given Nanos a no-confidence vote. 98% of his own people asking him to step down, and Nanos refused. He is still the sheriff. He is still running the investigation. He is still the face of the search for Nancy Guthrie, the same man that 98% of his own department asked to leave, is still in charge of finding an 84-year-old woman who has been missing for 57 days. Then came the lawsuit. Sheriff Nanos is now facing a personal lawsuit of $1.3 million related to his handling of the case. A recall effort has been formally launched. The Pima County Elections Department confirmed the campaign began on March 12th. A Republican candidate for his office said, "Nanos has been an embarrassment to Tucson and to Pima County." And then, on March 26, 2026, something happened that made every person following this case stop cold. Travis Reynolds, 22 years old, a deputy with the Pima County Sheriff's Department, the same department investigating the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie, was arrested by the Tucson Police Department and charged with 1 count of kidnapping. While on duty, Reynolds was transporting a handcuffed female detainee to the Pima County Jail. According to the interim complaint obtained by KOLD News, he called her hot. He shared a vape pen with her while she was in handcuffs. He told her he could help with her case. When she asked how he allegedly told her they could go to a hotel and have sex, he showed her sexually explicit videos on his phone while she was handcuffed in the patrol vehicle. She asked to be taken inside the jail. He refused. She watched other officers come and go with their detainees. She did not know what was taking so long. She had never been arrested before and did not know her rights. Reynolds eventually removed her from the vehicle and instructed her to expose herself before finally bringing her into the jail. Jail surveillance video confirmed parts of her account. Prosecutors told the court the allegations were very, very concerning given Reynolds' position and the imbalance of power between him and the alleged victim. They said there were indications the conduct may have occurred before. They said the alleged victim was very afraid of Reynolds and expressed concern about potential retaliation. Reynolds told investigators he may or may not have shown explicit material or discussed sex with the detainee. He appeared in court on March 27th. The judge set his bond at $200,000. He was fired. And then authorities were asked a direct question. Did Travis Reynolds have any role in the Nancy Guthrie investigation before his arrest? They declined to comment. They declined to confirm or deny whether a deputy who has now been charged with kidnapping had any involvement in the investigation into a kidnapping. That answer has not been given. As of today, it remains unanswered. Ex-users immediately made the connection that most of the media ignored. One wrote, "This could seriously impact the investigation into Nancy Guthrie's abduction." Another wrote, "One or more have been compromised in Pima Department. Time for the FBI to take over." Someone else wrote, "If a deputy can face kidnapping charges, how can we trust the department to handle Nancy Guthrie's case fairly?" These are not fringe theories. They are logical questions that follow directly from documented facts. Now let's look at what we know about the investigation itself. Because beyond the institutional failures, there are details about the case that have never been fully examined. Nancy was last seen at 9:45 in the evening on January 31st. She arrived home. The back doors were found propped open the next morning. Her phone, her keys, her wallet, and her medication were all inside. Her cell phone disconnected from the network at 1:27 in the morning. At some point in those hours, between 9:45 at night and when she was reported missing the next morning, someone entered that home. or Nancy left it against her will. The blood on the porch was hers. 10 days after her disappearance, investigators released doorbell camera footage. A masked man, black gloves, a backpack, a holster that appeared to contain a weapon. The suspect removed the doorbell camera, but investigators recovered images from it before he could destroy them. The FBI later confirmed this same masked figure had appeared at Nancy's doorstep on a second date. Not just the night she disappeared, he had been there before. 3 weeks before the night she disappeared, a masked individual was seen on the doorbell camera at her home. This detail was accidentally released publicly by FBI Director Kash Patel before local investigators intended it to be disclosed. It surprised local and federal investigators on the ground who had hoped to keep it confidential. The FBI's Video Forensics Unit analyzed the footage and described the suspect as a male approximately 5 feet 9 inches to 5 feet 10 inches tall, with an average build carrying a 25-liter Ozark Trail Hiker Pack backpack. That description is everything investigators have publicly confirmed about the suspect. No face, no name, no arrest. 57 days later, 3 ransom notes were sent to media outlets. NBC News reviewed a copy of one note and said its contents were consistent with descriptions provided by the FBI. 2 deadlines passed without contact. No proof of life was ever provided. Former FBI agents described the absence of direct communication with the kidnapper and the lack of a clear ransom demand as highly unusual. The Guthrie family believes at least 2 of the notes are legitimate. One man was arrested for sending a fake ransom note. Derek Colella appeared in court on charges of intent to transmit a ransom demand. He allegedly posed as the kidnapper and sent demands via text message moments after the Guthrie family released a video asking for proof of life. He was released from custody after his court appearance. The black gloves found 2 miles from Nancy's home were initially a major focus of the investigation. DNA on the gloves was later traced to a local restaurant worker who had no connection to the case. A pair of DNA samples from the actual scene are still being analyzed. Investigators turned to forensic genetic genealogy, the same technique that identified Brian Kohberger as the Idaho student killer, the same technique that has solved cold cases across the country. The lab reported challenges with the sample. The challenges have never been publicly explained. As of today, 57 days since Nancy disappeared, the DNA still has not publicly identified a suspect. The FBI and Pima County Sheriff's Department have received over 13,000 tips. A task force of 20 to 24 people is dedicated to the case. Half from the sheriff's office, half from the FBI. And they have nothing they can publicly confirm. Savannah Guthrie sat down with her Today Show colleague Hoda Kotb for her first interview since her mother disappeared. She said she wakes up distraught every night. She said in the darkness she imagines her mother's terror. She said her brother knew immediately what had happened. He told her on the phone, "I think she has been kidnapped for ransom." Savannah said she feared her own fame had brought this to her mother's door. She said to her brother, "Do you think because of me?" And he said, "I am sorry, sweetie, but yeah, maybe." She said she already knew. The family is offering $1 million for any information leading to Nancy's safe return. The FBI is offering $100,000. Despite tens of thousands of public tips and a combined reward of over $1 million, not one credible lead has produced a publicly confirmed suspect. 57 days. No shoes, no medication, no phone, no pacemaker charging. 84 years old. And the department assigned to find her has a corrupted crime scene. A sheriff with a 98% no-confidence vote from his own deputies. A decision to send evidence to a private Florida lab instead of the free FBI forensic service. Cadaver dogs pulled without a clear public explanation. a sheriff who spent more time at the gym than the office during the active investigation, a formal recall effort, a $1.3 million lawsuit, and a deputy who worked for that department just arrested for kidnapping, who investigators declined to confirm or deny had any role in the search for Nancy. Step back from the individual details. Look at the whole shape of what the documented record shows. An 84-year-old vulnerable woman was kidnapped from her home in the middle of the night. Her blood was on the porch. A masked man had been at her door 3 weeks before she disappeared, and the department assigned to find her may have corrupted the crime scene before the investigation even properly began. The former United States Surgeon General said the crime scene damage is irreparable. The department's own deputies said their sheriff should step down. One of their own was arrested for kidnapping while the investigation was active, and nobody will confirm whether that officer had any connection to the case. There are 3 frameworks for understanding where this investigation stands. The first framework is institutional failure without malice. Sheriff Nanos made serious mistakes, but they were the result of ego incompetence and inexperience rather than deliberate obstruction. The crime scene contamination was a procedural failure. The private lab decision was a misguided attempt to save money. The cadaver dogs were pulled for legitimate investigative reasons that have not been publicly explained. The deputy arrested for kidnapping had no connection to the Nancy Guthrie case. The investigation is moving forward despite its public failures. The second framework is systemic institutional rot. The 98% no-confidence vote is not a minor complaint. It means the people who work inside the department every day believe their leader is not fit to do this job. If that assessment is correct, it raises a question about every decision made in this investigation. What else was mishandled? What else was never publicly disclosed? What protocols were ignored? What evidence was mishandled in ways that have not yet been reported? The third framework is the one nobody in mainstream coverage will say out loud. A deputy in the department investigating a kidnapping was arrested for kidnapping. Investigators declined to say whether he had any role in the Nancy Guthrie case. Not yes, not no. Declined. The FBI's investigation is active. The recall effort is active. The lawsuit is active. And Nancy Guthrie is still missing. 57 days. In her pajamas. Without her medication. Without her phone. Without her shoes. Her daughter wakes up every night and imagines her terror. And the department assigned to bring her home has a deputy in custody for kidnapping, while the sheriff goes to the gym. Subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell, because this case is not over. And when there is a development, this channel will be the first to cover what it means. Leave your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe the Pima County Sheriff's Department is capable of solving this case? Do you believe the deputy arrested for kidnapping had any connection to Nancy Guthrie's disappearance? And do you believe that after 57 days and every failure that has been documented, Nancy Guthrie can still be brought home? Because her family believes she can. They are still asking. They are still waiting. And somewhere out there, someone knows something. Someone knows how to find Nancy Guthrie and bring her home.